Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. I am your host, Mike Jokum. This week, joining me from Wayne Taylor Racing is Chad Hurst. Chad, first off, how are you doing right now?
Oh, I'm good. Everything's going great. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm hanging in there, making the best of everything. So let's start out here. During quarantine, how do you, as a bodywork guy, stay busy? Are you able to get in the shop once in a while and get some projects done, or are you pretty much just home waiting for everything to get back underway?
I've not been in the shop since the shop closed. So basically, what hair I have, I've been pulling out, anxiously trying to wait to get back into the shop. My notebook is full of ideas of what actually has been going on in my mind these past 9 weeks.
I understand that. I'm starting to get a little bored too here. So before we get into racing, let's start with an easy / maybe fun question. Have you come up with any new hobbies under quarantine? Anything unusual or fun, or just yard work and housework sort of hobbies?
It's basically been like everyone else, yard work and housework. We put in a new fire pit off the patio. I redid the den in the house and turned it into basically not really a man cave, but more towards my office, but mostly all the collectibles I have in that. Been picking out some old collectibles to sell and to get that just don't really need anymore. And other than that, trying to work out every day. And I'm a gamer, so I've been playing a lot of video games.
All right, well, I have to start there then. What is your game or system of choice?
I'm a PlayStation guy.
Okay, I like it.
So, I've got almost everything. If I wanted to, I could pull out the original PlayStation and play the original INDYCAR game. But I've been playing a lot of racing games just to keep my, how do I want to say it, hand-eye coordination going. Been a lot of that. Me and my daughter have been playing Monopoly on the PlayStation almost every day. So it's been kind of a laugh.
Man, I am terrible at Monopoly, but we do have 2 PlayStation Pit Lane Parlay leagues, one for the F1 rate, one for the last year's F1 game, and one for the Gran Turismo Sport, which are a lot of fun. And I wouldn't say I'm particularly great at both, but I am much better at them than I am at any sort of like Call of Duty or those games that are super popular. I am terrible at those.
Yeah, I'm not very good at that either.
We have some fans that I do play Call of Duty with a couple times a week, and they just laugh at how my inability to use the aiming button. So
yeah,
we will move on from that here. So you started your career back in the Riley and Scott Composite shop, but I'm curious, how did you get to the point where you wanted to kind of work on cars from that side of things? How did you kind of get started in motorsports?
I'm a Speedway kid, as I like to call it. I grew up in Speedway. My uncles and my father, when they were growing up, raced go-karts for my grandpa. And it just, as a little kid, I remember wanting to be the first person to push my uncle's go-kart to the grid. Because back then they didn't have cart stands. You just rolled them right up. And I did that, and I helped my uncle out when he moved up to a USAC pavement midget. And I just kind of always thought it would just be a hobby of doing so. And then one day I got a phone call from a buddy of mine about Riley and Scott needing some help. And I was like, well, I guess I could try it. And I walked in and told him if I can't do it in 4 weeks, to show me the door, because I had never done it before. And lo and behold, 20 years later, here I am.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So I'm just looking at some of the teams you've worked for over the years. Obviously, like we were talking before we recorded, Muscle Milk Racing, Dempsey Racing over in the WEC for Nissan LMP1, Ganassi, JDC Motorsports, and obviously Wayne Taylor now. So what are some of your kind of trophy case motorsports highlights over the past 20 years?
Oh, I mean, really, I think one of the highlights would be while I was at Mark I Composites, the owner, Jeff Mullins, one morning asked me if I would be interested in going and helping out at Petite in, I think it was 2011. And I was like, yeah, sure, it'd be fun. You know, he was like, it'd get you a little experience of this and that. And I went, and lo and behold, because at the time we were doing Muscle Milk's repair work at the shop. And I went down there and helped out, and that's what turned into 2012 being the fueler and composite guy on the prototype challenge car. And so I that's a highlight, because if it wasn't really for that, probably wouldn't be where I'm at right now. And then another real big highlight would be what we accomplished at Ganassi with the Le Mans victory on the GT side. But I'd always been a sports car guy before I went to Ganassi, and working on the INDYCARs and being quote unquote the guy for all 4 INDYCARs was kind of cool, or pretty cool, I should say, because it was just totally different and out of my range of what I knew. But there's been a few things. The Nissan experience was great, because it was actually the first full-time team I'd been on. Everything else before that was like fly-in, and everything still working at at Mark I during the day, as I call it. And then it's just stuff like that. There's so much. Probably one of the highlights is being on the grid for the 100th Indy 500, because of being quote unquote the Speedway kid again.
Makes sense. I definitely, all of that is fantastic. So being that we have typically talk IndyCar here a lot, I'm curious about your Ganassi experience. So what was your main job at Ganassi with the IndyCar team? And then obviously the Ford GT and the Ford GT40 are some of my favorite cars. So I'll ask about that in a couple of minutes. On
the IndyCar side, I was just the composite guy, basically. I mean, I looked over all 4 cars at the track. I was on Kanan's car on pit lane on the race weekends, and just really mainly just kept an eye on them all, make sure nothing was bad, or when something did happen, try to get it fixed as quickly as possible. And then on turnaround days at the shop, my main priority was those 4 cars, and the in-house carbon guys kind of pretty much took care of the GTs. But mainly it really was an experience. Great group of guys, and something that I learned a lot from, and I carry on still till today. So working with Tony Kanaan for your IndyCar experience, what was that like? What is Tony like behind the scenes? Is he as intense as he seems when I'm walking through the paddock? Tony's pretty intense. I mean, like any other driver, they're there to win. But yeah, he's intense, but he's also fun. He was good to be around. All 4 of them were good to be around. It's once you're in that side and you see them on a different angle, it's different than how fans see them and whatnot. But Tony was great to work with. I had never been around Charlie before, so Charlie was fun to work with. I had been with Max at Nissan, So it was fun working with Max again, and working with the guys and Scott. It's just something. That's hard to explain because they he's something else.
Yeah, I always marvel at some of the answers with some of the guys who have worked with Sky, whether it be this year when he joined Wayne Taylor or other places in the past, at just their experiences of being around him, and the little I've been able to talk to him since we've started our motorsports venture. He's always super interesting to talk to. I feel like his brain just works at a different speed than everybody else's, or at least mine.
Yeah, it was. I was like a kid at Christmas when I found out Scott was coming to Wayne Taylor. I was like, well, this is great. Him and Tony, I was around them the most at Ganassi just because of the way things worked at the racetrack and everything. And those two, there's something else. I mean, we spent time with them at Le Mans, had a few in-house jokes at Le Mans one year with a few things and some bicycles. So it's just really, they're really good people.
I can agree with that. So you did some work with the Ford GT40 program as well for the endurance races. So I'm just curious your experience with the GT40 car, which is one of my favorite cars, and I'm sad there's no GT40 in IMSA this year or anywhere this year in racing. So what did you think of that in the car, and do you hope that maybe someday that car is back on the sports car grid?
The beautiful car, everything laid out, bodywork wise, nice, I would say. Not perfect, but no race car is perfect. But just a beautiful car, and that going with those groups, like that group of the side of CGR for the few races that I did, the endurance races, it was really always fun. It was everybody kind of gave me a hassle because when I did go to endurance races, I was always told you only have to do something if something breaks. So we really the carbon side of those trips of the endurance races never really had to work, I would say.
So it was like you were just a fan watching with the occasional responsibility.
I wouldn't go around. But I never left the tent or the like Daytona. I never left the garage. Sebring, I never left the tent. I never went to pit lane. I just
Right.
stayed and made sure if anything was to happen.
I understand there. So, you've been at Wayne Taylor now since the fall of 2018. So what has your Wayne Taylor racing experience been like for the last, going on 2 years now?
To be honest, when I first started, I was a nervous wreck. New group of people, and a group of people that have a ton of experience. I mean, Bill probably doesn't remember me that much because I was totally different back then, but I worked with Bill back in 99 and 2000 at Riley and Scott. And then just the amount of experience of the employees at Wayne Taylor is just astronomical. And what they've all done before in the past, it's like a new guy looking in going, man, I like to be there. And I can't say anything bad. There's nothing bad to say. It's just the best environment that I've been around or been in, and whatever you need, you you get basically. And working for Wayne and Max, man, there's not enough I can say the thanks of what they allow us to do and what they provide us with. And through this pandemic, the past 9 weeks, there's been no worries. Gotten phone calls at home from Wayne, which one day I didn't even answer it because I didn't recognize the phone number because I don't have Wayne's number saved in my phone. I was like, who's calling me from Florida? And, you get the voicemail and all of a sudden you're like, oh, shoot, it's the boss. Better call him back as quick as possible. But yeah, I can't say there's nothing but praise and excitement. It's a joy to go to work, and on the weekends, everybody knows their job, and you don't really have to worry about anything.
I love it. So this year with the current IMSA schedule, I know the schedule is probably still up in the air, but we have a short Daytona race coming up in July, and then a short Sebring race, and then obviously the longer Sebring race now in November. So from your standpoint, what is Sebring like just in general? Because I know it's such a unique track, but B, how are you feeling about going to Sebring not once, but twice in 1 year?
It's going to be hot. Sebring's going to be hot in July. I mean, it's not like it's a joy in March either, but July is hot. Hopefully I'm not the only one that has said this. I'm just not a fan of Sebring. Never have been. It's rough on equipment. It's rough mentally on yourself, just due to the fact that you got to look over everything every time the car comes off the track, and you always find something because the place is so rough. But going twice this year, it'll be fun. Hopefully in July we get to run at night. It'll be better for us per se because it'll be cooler. For some reason the Cadillac likes the cool weather. But yeah, Daytona twice, pretty easy. Daytona's like an ice rink, it's nice and smooth. Nothing really happens.
Right.
I mean, we ran at the 24 this year. We come home and took everything apart and just had to wipe it down and wax it. There was nothing really wrong. And last year with the rain, it wasn't really anything wrong with it after 24 hours either. Just had to really wipe it down because of the rain. But Sebring's so rough. But going back in November, I think it's November for the 12-hour.
Yeah, mid-November.
Will be, hopefully it's cool, and we can finish the year off with being up on the top step of that podium. It's something that I've not experienced at Sebring, so I like to check that box off.
Yeah, I agree there. I have not been to Sebring, but it seems like the fans and most of the drivers seem to really enjoy Sebring. But everybody I've talked to from Wayne Taylor on your side last week and the last couple of weeks is pretty much in agreement with you that Sebring is definitely not their favorite place.
I mean, it's a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
As far as like on the fan side, I remember the first time I went there, and back then they could still stack the scaffolding on the trucks. Someone's Ford truck or Chevy truck would go by, and it's like scaffolding stacked 4, 5, 6 high, and it's a huge party. But the hours, because you usually in March when you get to Sebring, you've just done Daytona, and Daytona has the garage hours, and you get to Sebring, and there's none of that. In the ALMS days, it was common to be still at the track at 2, 3 in the morning, and then come back at 5. So it's mentally draining, more or less.
I get it. I definitely understand that. So, Chad, I'll wrap it up with one final question here. I appreciate the time this morning. It's not so much a racing question, although I guess it could have a racing answer. If you were to invite 3 people to a dinner party, whether they're alive or not, who would your special dinner guest be and why?
Oh, 3 people to dinner party. Oh. Oh man, what? I'd bring my dad for one. Even though he always told me never to be in this business because of how hard it can be, and with the layoffs and everything. But still, he's always been by my side, cheering me on and whatnot. Oh, I'd have to bring my wife, definitely, because if I didn't, I'd get hollered at. So I'd have to bring my wife too. It's because she's always home by herself, especially now with, at the end of the year schedule.
Yeah.
Who else would I bring? Man, that's tough. Who else would I? Probably Johnny Rutherford.
Ooh.
If I was able to bring one driver, I'd bring JR, because as a kid, I guess I was supposed to be an AJ Foyt fan because that's what my father was and my grandfather was. But somehow I leaned toward JR. I mean, my first go-kart helmet was like his. I mean, it was a hand-me-down from my uncle, but it was a replica of JR's 1980 helmet. And so, yeah, it'd probably be JR because of I just want to hear his stories.
Yeah, I like it. And like your dad and relatives, everybody, and my dad and my grandpa were big AJ Foyt fans as well before I was born. But I thought of one final question here, another one to put you on the spot to wrap it up. If you had to add one driver, I like putting people on the spot. I have to do it at least once or twice an episode. If you had to add one driver to the Wayne Taylor lineup, whether it be for the endurance races or the whole season, budget's not an issue. You've got unlimited budget, and you can tell Wayne Taylor, Wayne, this is the guy we're adding. Who are you adding?
Who am I adding? Can we say that Dixie and Kumo are already on the team?
Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to make it too easy for you.
Oh, man.
I know I'm making you think a lot. I know it's early for me too, so I apologize for putting you on the spot at 10:30.
No, it's fine. I can't. The bad thing is I can't think of his name off the top of my head. That's the problem. I can't think of his name. No budget issues.
Yeah, you've got unlimited funds.
Wow. Well, if I'll probably be like, I guess this is a copycat or probably a easy way out, but give me the Spaniard. Let's have Alonso again, and for the whole season, let's have Alonso. Not to take anything away from Ringer and Briscoe right now, but let's have a season of Kumo and Alonso, and let's just go win every race.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we can have it. We'll have another car in there, so you can have all the current drivers and Alonso. But actually, Alonso is not a copy answer from your colleagues that I asked this to last week. Although they did pretty much, they did make sure to give some a pat on the back to the current drivers. But Alonso is definitely not a copycat answer.
Well, I mean, if there's no budget, let's just let's take the show car and in the shop and make it race ready, put an engine in it. Let's go get another third car and let's just run 1, 2, 3 every weekend.
I love it. I'm on board for that.
That'll make it easy.
Yeah, and if Wayne is listening, Wayne, let's up that budget and then really make that happen here. So on that note, yeah, I don't want to get in trouble for actually suggesting that. So, Chad, thank you very much for the time this morning. It's been a blast talking with you. Stay safe. Best of luck once the season gets started, and I will see you guys out at a racetrack at some point.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's been a pleasure. And stay safe yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, thanks.